projects were all engaged in doing what I call literary archaeology, a systematic effort to retrieve and rescue fugitive texts and fugitive authors, along with the organization and analysis of their specific publication histories. To date, the novel project has recovered some 1,500 texts, and in 1995, our 2-volume checklist will be published by Greenwood Press. What began essentially as a project in descriptive bibliography, which appeared to fall outside of what was then the dominant trends in scholarship, has now become a subfield within literary studies. In the 10 years since the novel project began, I have come to understand just how important our work in recovering texts really is. What I would like to do in the next few minutes is to theorize, if you will, the project on the history of Black writing. From the very beginning, the novel project was informed by 2 basic assumptions and an accompanying set of questions. Assumption 1, reading and writing were dominant activities among Black people in the late 19th century, in the North as well as the South. One of the questions we wanted to ask in this regard was, what did Black people read? And how did writers conceive of their audience? Other related questions here include, what forms did writers choose to write in? What was considered serious literature? What was deemed popular? Where did writers publish? And how did the writer gain access to a community of readers? Assumption 2, the number of actual texts by Black people is staggering, and they all require examination. For example, there are independently published newspapers, almanacs, documentary and institutional histories, individual and collective biographies and autobiographies, journals, and memoirs, to list a few. It would not be possible to understand the literary and aesthetic practices of Black people during the 19th century without a careful investigation of these forms. Our methodological approach is twofold. On the one hand, we have been careful to examine contemporary developments in revisionist and reconstructionist scholarship, including but not limited to African American studies, feminist criticism, Black women's studies, and literary theory. On the other hand, we are constantly making assessments of what we consider the limitations of these forms of scholarly inquiry.
This is interesting because I cannot tell you when this was, but what I'm thinking about is that dialogue is all about Black print culture that we now talk about. So this is pre-Black print culture field of study. It's pre-material culture. All of these are areas that have grown out of, in my mind, Black studies writ large. But of course, we don't necessarily place them there when we talk about these new fields, the newly emerging fields. But it was just really clear to me that we were not doing the best job of investigating what was published, where it was published, and how that work continued to evolve. So we were, at the beginning of this stage of HBW, just trying to find stuff. You know, when we say literary archaeology, I guess the companion word is literary detectives.